For this Halloween, I wanted to sculpt Lock, Shock and Barrel from the movie Nightmare Before Christmas. We're running late, so I'm going to hop right in with smoothing down the Sculpey on the mask, starting with Lock. I decided to sculpt them with the masks on, but I think it would be cool to sculpt them with removable masks, maybe using a magnet. Because the eyes are inset, I decided I would just make the holes and paint the eyes later. I used a dotter tool to shape the eye holes, and I made a little triangular nose. I guess it's a prism, right? I kept the armature really simple for all of them because I knew that each of their arms were going to be against the body, so I could get away with not putting wire underneath the arms. I first made Lock's hands, then his arms, which were two tubes that I blended at the shoulders. I moved on to Shock, the little witch character. It's much the same process as with Lock, so I'm not going to bore you with a play-by-play. For Shock's hair, I used small pieces of wire that I wound to make them into wiry hairs, and then I stuck them in. I was worried they'd fall out, so I built up some Sculpey around the base, but I think they're okay with the tin foil that's at the core. Barrell is my favourite. Barrell is the only one of the three where I used pre-baked eyes because the holes in his mask are larger and you can see his eyelids, you can see around the eye. I built up the mask around the eyes so there'd be some depth. I moved on to sculpting his teeth, which were all little blobs. Most of this is little blobs, to be honest. At some point I gave him some arms, which were also tubes, and little hands. They have 3 fingers and 1 thumb, and that's accurate to the concept art. That's just working with what I have. I don't know. And that's the 3 of them sculpted. Now once they're baked, I can start painting. I skipped over bits like their pointy little shoes. For this project, I'm using Liquitex Basics acrylic. I think I'm still figuring out how to work with it. I started with a simple base layer to get the colours mapped out. Lock's eyes are yellow underneath the mask, his clothes are red, his mask is orange, and his hair is somewhere in between. I mapped out the mouth with pencil before going in and painting the teeth. I knew if I started with the teeth then I could tidy them up with black and just make them a little sharper. Shock's dress started as a very pastel purple. I go in later with a little more black just to bring that colour down a little to the same tone. I painted Shock's hat to match, and then I painted Shock's mask green. Then I painted the frills, the boots and the legs black. For Barrell's little skeleton costume, I started by mapping out the bones in pencil, then I went around them in black and I made a bit of a mess. After I gave up trying to be tidy, I painted the bones in white over the top. I was worried that the white wouldn't be saturated enough to go over the black without really layering it on, but I think it was okay. I painted his hair green. I'd put a lot of texture in there in the sculpt, and before I started painting, I laid down a really thin coat of black in the recesses and in the hair. Then I painted the teeth. I then went around the eyes with a slightly darker purple, and then I tidied up the eyelids. So then I moved on to the base, which started as a couple of pieces of mount board glued together and individual pieces of foam that I'd trimmed to sort of make cobblestones. I went over that with some plaster with a little bit of grey mixed into it just to get a nice base of texture, and I did a couple of layers of that. I made some gravestones to match. I painted the base in a couple of different shades of grey, some was a little bit more brown, some a little bit more black, and I really used the places where the plaster had cracked or fallen apart to build up some of that texture. I punched some holes in the base for where I knew the figures would be standing. Then I went in with some tacky glue and some moss, some foliage moss. I did go over that with some watered down PVA glue just to help keep everything in place. And so that is Lock, Shock and Barrel. Thank you for watching. Happy Halloween!